and thank you everybody for joining. This is Cute for Teams. If you are new, I haven't checked the name list yet, but this is where you come to geek out on Teams with us and bring your questions and or just come and listen to us talk. But we talk about teams and collaboration and all that good stuff. So happy to have you. It's kind of like an office hours, all that good stuff. And so at any time, feel free to use the chat. If you got a question, comment, or anything, or come off mute, we can do that too, or raise your hand, however you want to do it. As we get started, though, there was one thing I wanted to show. Let's see here. This question has come up a lot over the last few sessions in terms of new teams, and many of you are trainers and are trying to figure out what if anything do I need to train my users on with the new Teams client. And we've gone through it a bit, kind of the high points of the changes, but as of 4:30, they put out a post that goes into much more detail. And so especially if you're a trainer, this might be a good place to come, and you could consider taking, going down this list as a way to kind of come up with a curriculum or something for training. But it goes through and tries to talk about the different areas where one can expect to change. So for instance, and we talked about this here, the contacts and chat, no longer in the contacts. Now it's the people app. They talk about that. The ability to save messages, and we hadn't mentioned this in the past, but that feature is no longer there. Other stuff. No more wikis, now use notes, things like that. So probably not a 100% exhaustive list. In fact, in the same section, after you're done reading that, you might want to go to, I believe it was known issues. And this would probably be a list of some things, at least as of this date, 4/25, that they're still working on. So if we're expecting something to be in new teams and it's not, check this list to see if they're already aware of it, working on it, things like that. So so this second, let me put this in the chat here. So Control C and come over to chat, or did somebody already do it? Oh, you did. Okay, so I'll just put that second one there. All right. So yeah, I thought that would be useful for those that have been wondering about that. I think by now, unless you're kind of waiting, maybe the orgs might be waiting to the last minute, but probably most of us have access to new teams at this point. So this should be useful. And I just wanted to mention it because it was brand new. It didn't exist last time we got together. Any questions on that? The other thing I was going to talk about today was have a little loop conversation. I always come up with stuff based on stuff that's happened to me in the real world. And so this has happened to me as well. Now I think so. So let me describe the scenario. You're having a meeting with another person or a team, and the agenda really needs to be built out by everyone. And you know, if I'm creating the agenda, I will often, let's say this is the meeting, me, Bob, and Nestor. I will end up kind of putting a post here and, maybe putting some of my suggestions, and I'll start it off. But because I know I can edit this becomes, let's say the meeting's a week from now, this becomes a living document for me, because as the next day think of another topic that would be useful, then I can come in here later and add that topic. And of course, everybody, can see it as I'm making those edits. And then the other nice thing about it is that once this meeting, this happens to be a group chat, but once this meeting starts, that agenda is right there in the chat for everyone to see. So it's nice and convenient. It's right there. The downside to this approach is that only I have this flexibility, this convenience of adding new topics on my own. If Bob and Nestor has some suggestions about agenda, certainly they could put it in chat, but wouldn't it be nice to have it in that one single post? And that's where the loop comes into play. So instead of a message post, I would create in this case, I'm going to do a checklist. And again, also agenda, also topic 1, topic 2, and post that. So now I still get the same benefit of me being able to come in and add a topic 3 at any time. I don't even have to hit edit at this point, but everyone else can as well. Real time, all that good stuff. And so, not just topics, but any kind of all the different kinds of artifacts we might want, screenshots, things like that can all go in here. And we still get, I believe, the same benefit if I come in here to the meeting and chat, same benefit of that agenda, this living agenda at this point being in the chat of the meeting for everyone to see and use. But the additional benefits, as you probably can guess, is this loop can exist in multiple places. So essentially, this loop here has a URL, just like this post does, but it does have a URL. And in the case of my personal example, the agenda was good here, but as we talked about it, I actually wanted to take my notes in OneNote. I should have fired this up ahead of time. And I popped it in here. Now, I think I need to update my client because in a perfect world, the actual interactive loop would have shown here. Now, this works too. Clicking it takes me, what is this asking me? Thanks. Which one? I think it's that guy. The link takes me to the loop in the browser, so I can use it there. But yeah, I should have updated my client. And maybe it can work in the browser, but in a perfect world, you're going to get the same interactive loop component here as you did in chat. And so what makes that nice, let's use our imagination now since my demo didn't work, is to have additional notes. This is what I was doing, at least in my meeting, on the side of that interactive loop. And so in the meeting with the other people, we were basically doing our work in the loop. So here I am in OneNote watching them type and add new things and checking off tasks that they had done, but I'm also on the side, and of course they couldn't see my notes. I'm on the side making additional notes for some of the things going on in that loop. So OneNote is one of many places it could have been, and in this case, that was just useful to me. I don't know where the other people were doing their edits. They could have chosen to put it in an email address. They could have stayed in Teams. You could have put it in a whiteboard. It doesn't matter as long as we all have that access. And so that became a useful tool there. And if I go back, a reminder, and again, something that we ended up using as we were talking through topics, if there was anyone that I really wanted to call out for a specific person, that's when I used the @mentions, which to give this person, let's click on that. I know why it's doing this, but anyway, so yeah, that's the end result. Nestor gets this convenient email saying that I forget the wording of it, but essentially letting them know they've been mentioned in a loop, and then of course a convenient link back to that. And so you get to see people's names and things on different topics as needed. As you can see, files, all these kind of things could be put in here. So at the end of it, when everybody started working on it, it became this pretty elaborate, as opposed to just a bulleted list of a few agenda items. It then became an elaborate working document that went far beyond just an agenda. It became, for the next several days, it became the working space for us and a place to check off things as they were done, and hyperlinks to blah, 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 all that good stuff. So To me, that was just finding the power of Loop, but also, kind of, and you can see here all those changes are reflected here as well. But also just that power of that uh, real-time interaction and the ability to kind of collaborate on agenda ahead of the meeting, use it during the meeting, and then continue to use it after the meeting. So that before, during, after scenarios that we all love from Teams. So yeah, so that literally happened this week, and I thought I'd just share that in case, because I know, Loop relatively new to the ecosystem, and I think people are still looking for the best use cases for that. It's one of those tools so flexible. It's like, well, what is it supposed? It seems like it can do anything. What is it supposed to do? Where am I supposed to use it? And so this could be one example, but I do like the flexibility of this being in other places, whatever place is convenient for me at the time, and everybody having access. Certainly, this could have been a real-time collaboration in documents has been around a while. So this could have been a link to a Word doc or Excel or something like that. That's just not quite, to me, just not quite as convenient as an embedded area right here in the chat. If it was Excel, I'd have to click on it, open it, go to it, all that good stuff. So pretty useful to me. So if you've got any questions or comments on that, if you've got some other use cases you use with Loop, feel free to mention that. But just thought I'd tell that little story of my success with Loop this week. Good stuff. I check the chat here.
Yeah, we saw in the chat that GC, and I confirmed it as well. GCC doesn't get Loop in those components in Teams chat until June. So I went and pulled that roadmap item for tracking. So the good news is it's May. So based on having this demo in your pocket, you're ahead of the game for when it lands for you. And I'm eager for GCC to have this benefit. It is interesting when you think about co-authoring within a thread like that, what use cases come up. And I mean, you could think of like really super simple ones like, I don't know, formulating ongoing agendas for meetings that you may be conducting with others. Like it doesn't have to be the one-on-one, you and your manager, just small conversations. It can be planning in a group chat for some big event that you're putting on. Loop can come in really handy for those sorts of things. So I am curious if there's any other use cases that come to mind for Loop and ones that you are excited to maybe try when Loop lands. Throw those on the chat or come off of mute and we'll talk through the scenarios.
Certainly, you may not have it yet, but wondering if your wheels are starting to spin about what you might be able to use it for. And then, of course, if you've already figured out that it won't work for you, I'd be interested in that too. That'd be an interesting one. Starting to make its rounds. There was a time when it wasn't part of the channel posts, but we have them there as well. So that's good. And hopefully my update here helps me see it in other places as well. Let me check over here. I believe, yeah, we got the Loop component there. And in fact, if I pop that in here, that's the experience I was expecting over in OneNote, is that same real-time interactive component in my email. So if they were continuing to make updates here, and I don't know why I would, do a lot of work in an email. No, I could see that too. Something in my inbox that I could, because if I email this to myself, there's some interesting scenarios here because One would be, given that we sit in front of our Outlook all day, one scenario in new Outlook would be that I know this is a living component, so I will pin it to the top of my inbox. And now it's always conveniently there for me to get back to. And that to me, that makes a lot of sense if I'm going to be in my inbox all day anyway, to be able to keep coming back up to that post to see if anything new's been added and things like that. So that makes sense. And then of course, maybe I want to work on it a little later. You guys know I like new Outlook, partially because of the pinning, also partially because of the snoozing. So I might want to remind myself to work on this or check in on it later today, 2 o'clock or some other time. And so I could snooze this email, make it come back like it's new whenever I want, and then again, still have access to the real-time info and ability to do the work right here. So yeah, just in that little bit of time, I just thought about it, why the email piece would be a good idea. So good stuff. Okay, continue there. That's really taking some time for that update. All right, good stuff, good stuff, good stuff. See if I'm missing anything over in chat. Okay. Good deal. As always, if there's other kinds of topics, you'd like us to discuss, whether it's today or any other day, put that in the chat. We can prepare demos for that as well. I'm trying to think what else has been going on in the world of collaboration lately. Let's see what's going on here. Updates are installed. Okay, I don't think that's going to help me though. Yeah, I figure out what's going on with my OneNote there. All right. Any other questions or thoughts or comments? I think I do see a couple of new names. If this is your first time, welcome. Again, sometimes these sessions end up being, talking back and forth, and sometimes it's kind of presentation based, but we're willing to roll with whatever suits the needs of the day. And I think from a new team's perspective, I mean, we went through a couple of things. Thought there might be some new things in here. Let me check here. Well, no, that's not new. We always had the ability to add multiple profiles here. And I think in a previous session, I talked about how quickly that switch occurs. In fact, go ahead and see it. It's so quick that I really basically have got to stop talking about a delay period. I mean, that's like no delay. So tenant switching is not I mean, it's a non-topic at this point because that's just super fast. So, and if you do have multiple profiles, using this is nice to see if something's going on in the other one. That was one of the big challenges with multiple profiles or multiple tenants. It's just not knowing or missing out on what's going on outside of your home tenant. There were ways to monitor that, but none of those workarounds beats this drop down that literally alerts you to activity. So good stuff. Maybe by show of either a thumbs up or, well, how about a hand raise? Are people in multiple tenants today? Just wondering if that's a big thing for folks. Either a hand raise or a thumbs up. not that lets me know. Okay, multiple accounts, same tenant. So okay, so I didn't see anything. So multiple being a part of multiple tenants isn't a common uh occurrence, I guess. So to describe, so then the question might be why do I need to be in another tenant? Usually that comes from some kind of partnership where you're collaborating with someone from another tenant. um, someone from another tenant, another company has invited you to a team. Um, as they said, asked in the chat, it is a guest account. So on the back end, you literally have a guest profile in that tenant, which is allowing you to make that connection. Um, and it really separates, you visiting them and doing work in their space versus your space. So certainly when you have a lot of customers that you support, this becomes a common thing. But even as kind of end users in general, if you're collaborating with partners or other associates that happen to be in other tenants, that's where that would come into play. And then of course the shared channel, which you can see by that symbol there, is a wrinkle in that concept because it provides a more seamless approach to that same thing, where now we are actually in two separate tenants, but we are getting an experience that makes it feel like we're in our own, even though we're not. Now that involves those two organizations making some decisions to have their tenants trust each other. So it's only because of that seamless experience can occur, but it does keep you from having to switch context, and can put this literally could be a channel right within the rest of my teams and channels that actually is content from another tenant, but to me looks like it's part of mine. So that's what the shared channel concept is trying to do. So all these ways to just try to make it easier for us to collaborate with people outside of our org or our tenant when that's needed. This was a big deal to me when it first came out, because at that time, slow tenant switching was still a thing. With the fast tenant switching, it's still useful because I can integrate this into what I do. So I'm not trying to avoid a slow switch, but rather I'm trying to leverage the fact that that content can be right within the rest of my content. So yeah, there's just giving you a lot of different options for external collaboration. But yeah, if you are a guest account in someone's tenant, then you should be familiar with seeing this switch. Good deal. Good deal. All right. Well, again, we're glad everybody was able to join today. Hope this was helpful. Learned a little bit about external collaboration and some Loop stuff, and we learned about the GCC date for that. So maybe in a few weeks, these Loop talks will get even more interesting.
Yeah, no doubt.
Any other last call on any questions, comments, thoughts? See a hand there, go for it.
Oh, hi, Ricardo, this is Glenn. Hey. This is a Microsoft Teams Zoom question, which is really kind of far afield from this meeting, but I'm just throwing it out there in case anybody knows. Okay, I'm a part of a large organization. We have offices in different states. And so we have now set up, we're under GCC and individuals can meet, and it's great with Teams. We have set up a conference room in each office with what they're calling a Microsoft Teams box that has a camera that captures everybody in the room and a microphone that captures everybody in the room. So, we don't have to have 20 people with 20 laptops in a room. There's just one Microsoft Teams box and 20 people, and they can interact with other conference rooms that have Microsoft Teams boxes and with individuals who are in the office or at home with their laptops.
Yep.
Now, the question is, and this is all working great. The question is, we had a very large meeting, a couple of hundred people, and so before we even started the meeting in Calendar, we checked the box, mute all cameras and microphones so that people come in muted.
Mm-hmm.
That only worked for individuals. When the Microsoft Teams rooms joined, their cameras and microphones were not muted. And when a new one joined and an existing one was presenting, that cut off the existing one's audio. We didn't find this out until a lot of experimentation. When the new Microsoft Teams conference room joined, they became the presenter, and it terminated the audio from the existing Microsoft Teams conference room that was trying to present. And we didn't know what was happening, why the audio got cut off. And finally, just through trial and error, when the new joining conference rooms muted themselves, then the existing presenter became dominant again, and we could hear their audio. So this is a Microsoft Teams room question, not really pertaining to this meeting, but I'm just throwing it out there. That's an experience that we had.
Yeah. And I think a Teams room question is totally relevant for this space. I wasn't aware of that behavior. And I mean, I almost would want to have you put a ticket in for that just to know if that behavior seems weird. I'd also even try, does that behavior work if you didn't try to auto mute all the attendees on the front end, right? If you just left meeting options alone, do you still get that same behavior would be another question I would have. I know I've been in meetings.
Okay, thanks. We'll try that.
Yeah. I know I've been in meetings with multiple conference rooms, and I don't recall seeing that experience, but at the same time, that meeting wasn't an auto mute kind of a meeting either. So yeah, so that's an interesting one. If you do find out something for that, let us know. That'd be interesting.
Okay, thanks. I will.
Yeah.
I also wonder about the roles for the participants in that meeting, and if you could set the Teams room to have an attendee role so that it would remove those rights. But
well, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
I don't know, I'm leaning towards what Ricardo said about maybe making a ticket, but yeah, I think because you're the organizer and you're deciding you don't want cameras or mics, I think if the meeting room, and that's an if, I'd have to test the situation, is something that you could exclude from being a presenter in the meeting options. I think that might mitigate it for now, but I do think it'd be interesting to get a ticket opened up and understand why, if you're mute all and disabling of cameras from the get-go. My thought is probably what your thought was, that it would be the case for everyone, but those rooms getting in under the radar might be something that engineering can assist with. So.
Yeah. The last thing I'd say as a side note, because I know you're leveraging, loving the fact of people not having to have laptops when they're in the conference rooms and just looking at the screen, seeing everyone. There's also some value, though, to even though I'm in a conference, a full-blown Teams meeting room, still having and joining the meeting from my laptop to one, give me access to anything going on in the chat. Certainly I could see the chat, depending on your setup, I can see the chat up on the screen, but to interact with it, I'll still need a device. Also, to turn on my camera on my device to get a view of my face alone versus one of many faces in the large picture. So there's some scenarios where still, even with a a fancy, well done Teams meeting room, still having a device in front of you, even if it's the phone or a full blown laptop, can still have some value. So think about that. Good stuff. Well, again, hope we were helpful. And we're at time here, so we'll check you guys in a couple of weeks and keep the party going. Thanks for joining.
Thanks, guys.